Charles here again with another installment of Cypher Unlimited Live. We have our usual suspects from the Cypher Unlimited crew of Spigs18 or our good friend Anthony. We also have AD or Alpha Dean, and we have a pretty special reason for being here today. So Dean, why are we here today?
Well, guys, tonight we're joined by none other than the dynamic duo from Monte Cook Games. I mean, you could refer to them as a living dynamo, maybe twin stars, parts of the cosmos, but at least we could say they're lighting the cosmos or the cosmos of MCG. And I'm referring to none other than the Chief Operations Officer, Charles Ryan, and his lovely wife, Administration Manager, Tammie Webb Ryan. And not only are they bastions of the RPG community and greatness, they're awesome parents to two kids. You know, these kids are awesome too, Rowan and Olivia. Not only that, these are the next tier type kids, magnificent gamers themselves. So instead of me taking time to talk about them extensively or how many impressions their resume might have, I'll let these two wonderful people tell you about who they are and what they do. Tammie and Charles Ryan.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Tammie, and as AD said, I am the administration manager. I do everything from shipping orders and managing the warehouse to doing Gen Con and other convention management, and a little bit of everything. I wear a lot of different hats. I get to do finances. I get to do lots of spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. Oh my gosh, love them. Yeah, I probably put too much on spreadsheets, but
she
a
keeps
bit of everything.
Yeah, she keeps the plate spinning.
I recently got to take on another role because Shauna is amazing, as you guys know. But she was doing two jobs. She was doing doing like 500 jobs, frankly. But she was doing both project management and managing editing while she was also doing designing, while she was also, being a business owner. So recently, since we were able to hire the awesome, fantastic Jennifer Walls, who rocks, I was able to step back a little bit from customer service, and I've just started taking on project management. And I suck at it. Oh my God, it is so hard. Yeah, anyway, my intro was too long, but there you go. Follow that up, buddy.
As someone who does project management for a living, it is so hard. I'm right there with you, Tammie.
It's true. I'm Charles, and I am the COO, as Alpha Dean said, and I'm one of the partners in the company. So strategic level stuff, and I also kind of run the marketing department, if you will. We're a small company. We have 9 full-time employees, as well as a handful of part-timers in our warehouse. So it's not like it's a gigantic group, but there are 4 of us that myself, Tammie in the portion of her job that touches the marketing side and the customer service side. Darcy, of course, our fantastic community coordinator, and Jennifer, that's our little marketing team. So I head up that little group. I also do things like, for example, I'm the showrunner on the Ptolus Kickstarter that's currently ongoing. So a lot of hats.
You guys wear a ton of hats, but Monte Cook Games, you couldn't tell from the outside looking in, if you only have 9 employees, because you guys do some really excellent and big things. You would think you're a great company and what you are. So, I mean, I'm going to lead into the first question, and it's kind of the obvious one. How did you guys get into the gaming industry, and what led you to work at your respective jobs for Monte Cook Games?
I've been in the game industry for a long time, since 1990, 91. In 91, I published my first game myself. It was the very beginning days of being able to do like desktop publishing. It was back when like the precursor applications to what people use today. Well, there wasn't even Quark Express back then, which would be the precursor to what people use today. PageMaker, which was the predecessor to InDesign, was just coming out, and so
we're old.
Yeah, it goes way back. And so I've been a gamer since 1979, and I just wanted to publish my own game, so I did. The tools were just then becoming available, and I did. And I had my own company for about 8 years. Chameleon Eclectic was the name of the company. And then I went from there we went to Last Unicorn Games. Last Unicorn Games was bought by Wizards of the Coast. I was there. I was on the D&D team, RPG R&D initially, and then became the brand manager for D&D. Lost that job when Hasbro went through one of its many rounds of layoffs. Got immediately picked up by DVM Games, now part of Asmodee, which is the biggest English language game distributor in Europe. They're in the UK, probably the third biggest in the world, and was there doing marketing stuff for a few years. Came back to the States, was out of the business very briefly, and then you could pick up the story from there.
Well, actually, I'm going to take it back. So we met in like 98 or something like that. Or no, it was before that. But
Late
so
90s, yeah.
Shane Hensley wrote this game. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Deadlands. And
right.
And he needed some playtesters. And so
we actually
Shane actually is from the town. We grew up in Virginia. We didn't know each other growing up, but he was from the town next to where I lived, and we both went. All three of us.
2 tiny little Appalachian coal mining towns that were adjacent.
All three of us went to Virginia Tech for university, and we actually met playtesting Shane's game Deadlands.
It's true.
And we hit it off, and
there was a hitch.
Well, I was married to somebody else, but you know, that makes it sound so bad. I have to take it back. We actually, my husband and I split up, and then we got together.
Yeah.
2 very separate events,
yes.
Many years in between.
Yes.
But anyway, when he got the job offer in England, that was super exciting. And we moved over there and we lived there for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like my only time since we've been together that I didn't have a full-time job. My job over there was to take care of these little kids who were running around with these English accents. I don't know, it's like they just
they were
lived
like
over
one
there, and they
in
had,
3 at the time.
they were basically learning to talk, and so they just had the cutest English accents. And then when we came back to the States, we didn't really have any place to go, so and we had nothing. We didn't have a car because we didn't want to ship a car across the ocean. We didn't have
a car with the wrong drive. Yeah.
Electronics because none of the electronics would work. We came back. We were like, well, what do we do? So we actually went back to little town.
And that was also what was it, 2010 or so? I was like I was right in the depths of the recession. And we weren't coming back to jobs or anything like that.
Yeah, so. Neither of us had jobs. And so I worked a lot in emergency services. So we came back to the little town that I grew up in, and I became a 911 dispatcher. And it was awesome because I felt really good. I was supporting the family. He was at home during the day with the kids, and I was working nights, and he was writing, and he wrote a novel during that time.
Sure.
And I got to be like the breadwinner. It felt really good. And then we moved here because he got another job offer. It just like wherever Charles gets a job offer, that's where we move. And so we came here to Kansas, and I'm pretty sure it's because at some point in my life, I probably said, like, who the fuck would live in Kansas? And then I was like, me. I would, apparently. Sorry. And I also just cursed. I apologize for that. Anyway.
And also, apologies to all of our Kansas friends.
Sorry.
I was just about to say, for the record, Monte Cook Games or Cypher Unlimited do not have anything against
Kansas. Right. No, I'm just saying, like, it was like a long time ago. Right?
Actually, the funny thing is, I just interject here. We've lived here for 7 years, which is the longest we've lived anywhere.
Yeah, this is the longest we've lived anywhere because it's amazing, right? It's like we literally call it Disneyland, Kansas, because this place, there's
Overland Park's a very, very
everything,
nice town.
right? It's a beautiful town. Everything is wonderful here. So,
yeah.
So Monte and Shauna had just held the Numenera Kickstarter, and this would be in the late fall at the end of 2012. And they basically had a They basically tried to run the business side themselves for like 6 months or so. And then like one day Monte posted on Facebook and he was like, hey, does anybody know anybody who, can be an office kind of person, do administrative things? And I was like, I know I can. And I didn't have a job at the time. And he was like, oh yeah, totally. Let's meet and let's talk. And we did. And so they hired me as a contractor. And then probably like 3 months later, I was talking to them via video conference like this, and I was really sad because the business that Charles had been hired had just gone out of business, and he had just lost his job. And I was like, oh, Monty.
Coincidence? You be the judge.
Oh, Monty, Charles lost his job. And instead of like the sympathetic, like, you know, I expected the, you know, like it was a completely different response. He was like, really? And then it was like, yeah, he lost his job, you know. And so then they were like, well, maybe this new Monera thing has more legs to it than we thought. So
yeah.
That's how we came.
It's
so that would be July.
And the missing piece of this puzzle is that back when we moved to Seattle, when Last Unicorn was bought by WotC in 2000 2000. But we've known Monty since then. We were actually really good friends with Monty and his wife at the time, Sue Cook, now Sue Weiland. And so like we go way back with Monty. So when Monty had posted on Facebook, does anybody know anybody? And Tammie's like, me? That wasn't out of the blue, right? And likewise, when, like as Tammie said, Monty was like, instead of being like, you know, oh, I'm so sorry to hear Charles lost his job, he was like, oh, really? Like, that was also not completely out of the blue. Like, you went way back.
When you got fired, Monte Cook was basically like, oh, it's all coming together.
18 Kickstarters later.
The secret was that Monty actually got him fired.
But yeah. Speaking of all those projects, like, you know, 18 Kickstarters, whatever have you, you guys have helped create a bunch of books over the years, like Numenera, The Strange, Invisible Sun, Your Best Game Ever, all the setting books that come with that. Do you guys have a personal favorite book that has come out, and what kind of Monte Cook games do you guys play at home?
Well, I love The Poison Eater, which isn't a gaming book. It's a fiction book. So Shauna is an amazing writer. So that would be my favorite, probably my favorite book that we point out. It's really hard. It's like choosing between your kids, right? But yeah, I know you could. I can't choose between your kids. You know, we play Cypher all the time. It's probably like I actually ran. I wanted to play Scooby-Doo with my kids and a few other people. And so like I made a Scooby-Doo Cypher. And the hardest part about that was actually just making the characters, because I was trying to be really specific. I really wanted it to feel like Velma and Scooby and all of that. But, you know, it went pretty smoothly. So what would you say? Do you have a...
mine is probably the CSR, I would say, or certainly that's the one I use the most because, you know, I've run plenty of Numenera. I ran a campaign of The Strange for a while. We're playing Invisible Sun now, so actually maybe I'd put Invisible Sun at the top of the list. I really, really like that game. I
think it's whatever you're playing is your favorites.
It could be, right. But mostly, like I ran a hard science fiction campaign. I ran a zombie campaign. I recently ran a one-shot, actually in the middle of it because we had to split it into two parts, but I adapted Paranoia to the Cypher system. I've run once a couple of years ago, I ran the very first, like my first experience in RPGs was the blue box starter set for D&D back in 1979. And I went and got the adventure that came in that off of Drive-Thru and ran that using Cypher rules for the family. We had a lot of fun doing that. So I pretty much am just wearing out Cypher system rulebooks.
Don't feel bad, so do we.
Yeah. And Charles, you actually wrote me and Dean's favorite adventure for Gen Con. Last year's sci-fi adventure.
You know, that actually was, I took like the first act of the campaign that I ran with my players and sort of like distilled it down into that one adventure. So that sort of came out of the campaign I was just mentioning. I ran that.
I've run Castaways probably about 50 times now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, go ahead, Dean.
I was just saying, I run it. I do demos. The local game store has contracted me to do demos, and just about every week I'll run, you know, Castaways, or at least a portion of it, like a 2-hour portion of it.
Right.
It is so good and it's so easy to
thank you.
In. So thank you.
I actually ran Castaways before I read it. No, but it's an awesome adventure. I've run it at least 5 or 6 times myself on the server, multiple times on the Discord.
And Tammie, you should actually talk to Anthony. He's run Scooby-Doo as well.
Yeah. We take notes for sure.
Yeah.
It was definitely a super fun game. I think I played the Shaggy character.
Oh my gosh, I totally see that. Yeah,
it was very fun.
Like, I think Shaggy's the funnest character to play, man.
He was there.
I love the voice.
So, that's great. But because we could talk all night long, guys. So, last month, we had new Game Master month. Great. And Monte Cook Monte Cook Games is the brainchild of it all. Charles, you wrote all the articles for the website. So what's the best advice you can give to first-time game masters now that you have time to reflect on everything you've done?
Thanks for asking that question. That's a great question. This was actually the 6th year for New Game Master Month, and it was originally just an MCG thing, but we have in recent years had Pelgrane and Atlas and Chaosium involved, and so and we will continue to grow that. I'm really proud of that program because I think it distills down. I hope people find that it distills down what they need to do to get started. But I actually say this a lot in that program as you read those articles. The secret sauce is that there is no secret sauce, right? It literally is all the things you think you have to know to be a good GM. You don't have to know those things. You don't have to be like super expert on the rules. If you're playing a given setting, you don't have to be super expert. Just do it. I know that sounds kind of lame if you're looking for a piece of advice that will be the magic bullet and make it all work for you. But the bottom line is that really, if you think you can, engage the players, if you can engage people in conversation, you can engage them as a GM. And it's really just having the confidence that there's not some secret that other people have that you don't.
Yeah.
Charles, I don't know if you saw or not, but we actually broke down every one of your articles. We did a month's worth of Cypher Unlimited YouTube videos breaking down every article.
Oh, I did not see that. No, I was unaware of that.
Sorry. It is. I think Darcy linked to it, and I watched them. But yeah.
And they were very well crafted. And I mean, we all owe hats in the GM booth, but you could always learn something new.
I think that's true. And GMing is something that I've been doing, back when I got that blue box in 1979, like the thing that called to me was to run the game, right? And so I've been a GM since 1979. But I always feel like there's something to learn. So like when Your Best Game Ever, when we were working on that book, right? Like I was like, I think it'd be easy for somebody who's been doing it for 40 years to be like, well, that's not for me. But I was really excited about it, right? Because there's always more to learn.
It's funny that you said that because same here. Like you're 79, I was 77 when I got my first white box.
Nice.
And literally, it was the same thing. And Anthony, to tell you, even when when you guys first announced Your Best Game Ever, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna back this. I mean, what? And now it's one of my favorite books. I've actually take the audio version of it to work. And I listen to the audio version. And what's really nice about it is because it puts things that you might know or consider or have even done, but it puts a face to it. It puts it in perspective.
Right.
And those things like that make any of us, I think it makes us better at what we do, makes us better at storytelling, makes us better at writing and crafting. And like I said, I love Your Best Game Ever. Anybody out there, please get yourself a copy. It is well worth the energy, well worth the money, and well worth the time to read it.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
I'll move on to the next question. With Monte Cook Games, it's no secret that your primary business model is to utilize Kickstarter to fund all your great products you produce. Could you speak a little bit about the pros and cons of using Kickstarter as a business model? And do you ever foresee changing this practice in the future?
So that's really interesting. As I said earlier, I'm the showrunner on the Ptolus Kickstarter. So that means that, I go in and I do all the day-to-day stuff on it. And just today I was in the comments and somebody said something in the comments about like, well, why don't you make an entire line out of this game? And the answer that I gave there in the comments, which I'll give here, is that like when we launched this Kickstarter, we knew there was demand for this because people ask. So first of all, I'll just say Ptolus is not actually an MCG property. That's actually Monty's property personally. So he personally has licensed it to MCG the business for us to publish this new version. But yeah, so we knew that both he personally and MCG, because a lot of people don't know that distinction, right? So they think that anything that Monte ever did belongs to the company. We get people asking about it fairly frequently. So we figured there'd be an audience for it. But at the end of the day, how big is that audience? How many people remember a book from 2006, right? Like we the answer is a lot. That's great news. But we don't know for sure how something is going to go until we put it out there. And so that's one of the huge advantages of Kickstarter, is it lets you know in a way that no market research ever could, because people are voting with their dollars, whether, how into something people really are. Like, so we could run a survey at Gen Con, or we could do hire a polling company, do a phone survey. We could do all kinds of things to get feedback from players about what they want, gamers about what they want, but nothing actually tells you the truth about what they want, as saying, okay, will you actually give us money for that right now? And so that's in the case of Ptolus, we're seeing that the demand for it is very, very high. This is clearly on trend to be
to help you make it.
Yeah,
you're saying, let's do this.
Yeah, and so that is actually I would say that's one of the advantages. There are a number of other advantages. The engagement of the community, as Tammie just said. Here's our cat Scott. Hello, Scott.
The best kind of interruption.
It lets us do things that we probably couldn't, either because they're commercially risky, or maybe because they just don't really have any kind of way to be worthwhile in another channel. We have I wish I could show it, but it's here on the table. We have the Numenera playmat, which is this this big playmat. Can we get that out?
Sure.
Can we get the cat off of it?
I don't know.
Can we get the cat off?
Come on, kitty.
Oh, they have all the books.
So is that Arcana the Ancients?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
So
but anyway, Numenera playmat, upside down.
Well, I can't do.
Oh, that thing is gorgeous.
It really is.
It is really nice, and it's nice and big.
Can't wait for mine to get here.
So that's a product like we just would not be able to make that commercially available through retail stores or what. Maybe we could do it through our own store and direct mail and stuff like that. But doing a Kickstarter, and when that Kickstarter is successful, it gives you a little leeway to do some different things along the way. We were able to say, let's do this. And if a few hundred people are interested in it, that's enough to fund the production of it and bring it to market. So letting us do cool and different things, let us understand what people want, what the gamers want. Obviously, RPGs have traditionally been a bit of a marginal business. It's difficult for small and medium-sized publishers in this industry to stay alive. So the cash flow advantages of Kickstarter certainly are beneficial to a modestly sized company. There's a game like Invisible Sun. Absolutely no way we could have taken a risk like that to try and just do that through conventional publishing methods. So the ability to unlock the games and products that we really want to see, I think, is there. So in answer to the second part of that question, do we ever foresee a change? No, I don't think so. I think that we really like what this model does for us. Crowdfunding is in the vicinity of half of our revenues, because we do sell through all the conventional normal ways, and our stuff goes into the friendly local game store, and we sell through our own shop and drive-through and other things like that. So it's not everything that we do. And when you talk about disadvantages, it's a very swingy revenue model, right? You get a big chunk of money once or twice a year, and then you better make it last. You won't get that big chunk again for 6 or 8 months.
You mentioned Invisible Sun. Was there a fear with that Kickstarter? Because, that is sort of like a luxury gaming item. And it's not like the traditional game you guys normally Kickstarter with Numenera and stuff. Was there a fear that, it wouldn't get funded?
Sure. Yeah. And that's the thing, is we do this a lot, but we don't go in with any suppositions about, like, we can look at it and say, for sure we need this Kickstarter to do at least this much, or we won't be able to stay in business. And, it needs to hit a certain funding goal to be able to make the products. And we can have a ballpark and say, I'll bet you this Kickstarter is probably going to make at least $300,000 or whatever, right? Like we can, but we don't we don't have like any sort of special inside knowledge about how well something is going to do, and we can't make any assumptions about how well it's going to do. So absolutely.
Well, I mean, we make the backer levels, we make the product, we make it as enticing as possible, and we do forecast, what we think.
We think is attainable.
We have those processes in place to make sure that we are managing our resources.
Right.
Well, I have to say, the one thing I can say, as a backer of just about everything you've ever done, I have no complaints about the money I've spent, and I have no complaints about telling people to spend their money. I was just at the game store today, and I made sure they actually to the stores I go to, I made them make sure they pledge today. They pledge at the global level to get the
thank you
to get their books. So
I have a question from Zany Black, one of our listeners, and this is a pretty good question, and it's relevant to what we're talking about. But he wants to know, would you guys consider using any other crowdfunding sites besides Kickstarter?
So that is a great question. There are obviously ones that I think people are well aware of, like Indiegogo and so on and so forth. There's also a pretty fantastic platform that is run out of France that was actually put together, I think, or spun out of the very company that publishes the French edition of Numenera, Black Book Editions. That is a really slick-looking platform. There are, unfortunately, network effects that go with the platforms. People are hooked into Kickstarter. They know what it is. When Bob backs a Kickstarter, then his friend Fred gets a notification saying Bob just backed his Kickstarter. All of those things create a pretty powerful barrier to looking to move outside of the Kickstarter space. But we've considered it many times, actually. Yeah, we're not married to that platform per se. It just happens to have worked out really well for us, and it's got some good advantage.
Being a small company, it's possible, right? And that's the nice thing about working for a small company, is that when something comes along that changes, you can respond to the change pretty quickly.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting perspectives on the whole Kickstarter side of things, especially like the using it as like a sort of taking the pulse on consumers, like a sort of survey. I never thought of it like that. It's really interesting to think of it in that way. But now that we're talking about Kickstarter, you guys at Monte Cook Games have funded a ton of great projects through it, and you guys have a perfect record when it comes to fulfilling your products to backers. I can only imagine it's really difficult to keep track and fulfill all these orders, right? So Tammie, can you speak to us about the process and like what's the best way for customers to reach out to you in case there's any issues?
Absolutely. So almost all of our Kickstarters, except the specialty ones, like when we just did the slipcase, because that was a very simple, how many backer rewards? 2 or
one?
Okay,
yeah, talking about the Invisible
very
Sun.
simple. The Invisible Sun slipcase set, we just used Kickstarter for that, right? We didn't actually go to BackerKit, but almost all of our Kickstarters, we use BackerKit. And through BackerKit, it's mainly Jennifer, Darcy, and myself, and we leave notes for each other in BackerKit. We manage all of the rewards, and all of the customer queries come in through our MCG shop email, and we can communicate both in Slack and on BackerKit, basically leaving each other notes. So we mostly manage it, like I said, through BackerKit. If somebody needs to reach out to us, they should definitely email. Like, you can email MCG shop at montecookgames.com. You can email Jennifer at montecookgames.com or myself, or support at montecookgames.com. So, we try to make sure that we're on top of support. We also respond to Kickstarter messages. We try to be everywhere. It's really difficult. It's really especially difficult with social media. Sometimes I'm there and I can see something and I can respond to it right away. Another time it takes 48 hours. So that's the most difficult part, is making sure that we're on top of the social media. What were you going to say?
You kind of went into the customer service aspect of it, but there's also like all these logistics that go on where we're tracking what the promises we make to people during the campaign. That creates documentation that we use internally. And then Tammie.
That's the spreadsheet stuff. I just figured nobody else geeks out about spreadsheets, right? So we have a master campaign tracker where we do all of that, and there's lots of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And then when I fulfill rewards, right, we download these great big giant spreadsheets and we upload them places, and it's just wonderful. And I just geek out. But
awesome.
Yeah.
And Tammie draws little hearts on your box.
Yes, I very much appreciate those times that I've seen that. It's and then the inside on the tracking slip too. Like it's wonderful. I love that.
I feel bummed out when I don't have the heart. I'm like, hey, well, what happened to my heart?
I'm so sorry. I know the problem with drawing the hearts is like when I'm not there at the warehouse. It's like because these days it's been really great. Occasionally I'm not there, and Olivia, our daughter, actually runs the warehouse for me, and I should make this like huge giant list for her. If you see any of these names, you must write a personal greeting. Although she is herself getting to know a lot of names.
She's pretty good about that.
And she has one customer in particular. I personally can't remember his name, but he is in the military, and right now he's overseas, and so we ship to an APO. But he always says, please, use extra packing because they drop it out of an airplane. I'm sure they don't, but that's how I'm sure military mail gets treated. So Olivia just, she uses foam, and then she writes a note. She usually draws a dinosaur. And so she really has the right attitude, the right respect for the customers, the right care. She does a good job.
Yeah, she does.
Listen, I did not lie when I said your children were next tier. Those kids are awesome. I have children of my own. I love kids, but I really enjoy Rowan and Olivia so much. I look forward to seeing them here at Gen Con. You guys do a great job.
So I'm glad that they act like that in public. Right. I'll tell you what.
Well, here's a little sort of like a Gen Con story about Olivia in particular. The first year so in 2013, I was the only one other than Monte and Sean who went to Gen Con. The first year that we had our booth, it was way at the back of the hall, and it was facing the back wall, and it wasn't very big. And but we were all going, right? And this is 2014, so we're talking 6 years ago, right? So Olivia was 10 or 11, and Rowan was 8. And Olivia was like, can I help out in the booth? Let me step back a little bit. We were like planning out all the management, Tammie was mostly planning out all the manpower and how we were going to do this. And she was like looking at this like, well, one of us is going to have to be on babysitting duty all the time, right? So so that's like, somehow I have to plan for one of us to not be on duty throughout this entire show. But Olivia's like, can I help out at the booth? Can I help out at the booth? And we're like, sure, yeah, absolutely. She's like, can I run the cash register? I'm like, nah, that's a grown-up job. So the hall opens at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. And at 10:03, I look over there and Olivia's running the cash register. She has insinuated herself into it. But not only that, she's totally like, she's checking people out. And then she's like, oh, this is a good purchase. Would you like some character sheets with that? Like she's like upselling people and stuff. Like she's fantastic job. And in the end, rather than being a net negative of having to require some parents to be a babysitter, having the kids even at that age.
She was adorable, and I was like, yeah, right. You go do your thing, girl.
And she was a net positive in terms of the personnel in the booth, right? And she's had a role. She and Rowan have both had roles at our Gen Con booth, every year since.
That's so awesome.
It just reminds me of like you guys are like the Bob's Burgers of the role playing game community.
Right.
it's just a knit family. It's all anyway. That's a little bit of a tangent.
Charles and Tammie gets a call from child labor law.
Another great thing about Kansas is that they can work very young here. It's a family business. So
really quick, before I ask the next question on the docket, we have Zany Black had another question. He asked about any plans for print on demand PDF combinations or anthologies for all the various PDFs like Numenera, Strange, Cypher, mini settings, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if you guys have any plans for print on demand or anything like that.
Most of the books that we have ever published are still in print, and as such, we're not looking for an alternate way to bring more of them into the world at this point. Now, that's not true. Some of the early books, and also a couple of the books that we've allowed to go out of print because they became obsolete, like the character options books. When the new core books came out for Numenera, we rolled a lot of stuff from the character options books into them. So then when we ran out of character option books, we didn't make any arrangements to reprint that. So at the time, there's not any particular print-on-demand plans, but you never know what the future holds, particularly as more titles go out of print.
Okay, cool. So that's awesome. So there's your answer, Zany.
Hi, Zany.
You know, see, look at there. Speaking of Kickstarter, you know, we've been talking about it and all of that. We didn't mention Ptolus a couple of times. You know, now this fully funded within what, a couple of hours, maybe an hour or so.
55 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I knew it was just about an hour because I was like right there when it opened up.
I was at work and I was like, oh, let me go fund it, and it was already funded. It was like 3 hours in or something.
You know, so you guys are like chewing through the stretch goals. This is amazing. You know, so can you tell our audience just a little bit about the setting and what makes it so unique?
Sure. So this is Ptolus here, and it's a kind of a big book. It's 672 pages, and it has sort of glued in. My personal copy of the glue is long since like dozens of pages of handouts and things like that also come with it. The original version from 2006 had a CD-ROM. We aren't doing a CD-ROM. Raise your hand if you have a CD-ROM player. However, the hundreds of pages of additional content on here, you would also get digitally as part of the new version of Ptolus. So the CD-ROM is going away, the content is not, or the content equivalent, because it's not necessarily exactly the same mix. Anyway, so that's sort of the scope of what Ptolus is. Ptolus was Monte's personal D&D campaign in the period from about 2 years before the release of 3rd edition through 3rd edition's development work and so on and so forth, and for a few years afterwards. And I did not play in the campaign. Tammie did not play in the campaign. However, we got to be jealous because everybody that was in his campaign were all friends of ours and coworkers from Wizards of the Coast. Andy Collins, who I shared a double cube with at work, was a player in the campaign, and
we moved to Seattle in 2000.
2000.
Okay, 2001. Yeah. So the campaign was already
it was well established.
It was well established.
Yeah. So
we get to just sit on the sidelines and cry.
Yeah. So Chris Perkins, who was my boss and still at WotC, was in it. Jesse Decker, who was a friend of ours, worked on Dragon Magazine, or maybe was the editor-in-chief in Dungeon at that time. I can't remember, but he was on the magazine side. All these people that we knew personally were all players in this campaign, and we were always hearing these epic stories about it. I did manage to play.
You got to be a guest star.
I got to be a guest in once or twice, a couple of one-shot adventures that were side adventures. And he actually had like 2 separate parties, maybe even a third for a while, that were, that played on different nights of the week, but in the same campaign. So they sometimes interacted, and the facts, the things that were happening in each campaign would connect with each other. And I think it's really safe to say that because all of these people were professionally involved in the development of 3rd edition, that Ptolus sort of really reflected what 3rd edition was. And likewise, I think it's safe to say that 3rd edition was influenced by what was going on in that Ptolus campaign as the players, the players who were influential on 3rd edition were trying things out and sort of seeing how things worked. So Ptolus is a city setting, and Monte's idea, if I could put words into his mouth or borrow some of the stuff that he sort of talked about with it, was he wanted to knit together an urban campaign environment with a dungeon campaign environment. So he conceptualized the city where there's essentially 3 major factors. We've got a cat rubbing against the side of the laptop right now, so if it's shifting around, that's why.
We're the worst interviewer E's ever.
That's great. It's awesome.
Come here, Sky. This is Sky.
Oh,
it's even. Don't worry, we're the worst interviewers. So.
Big facts.
So the idea is that he had like this fantasy city, and it's kind of a boomtown environment because beneath this fantasy city have been discovered. There were some dungeons and things that were known about, but it's been discovered they're much more extensive than people had previously known, or maybe some people knew about it, or some people claim that they knew about it, but whatever, So adventurers from around the empire are drawn to Ptolus because of these massive dungeons underneath it. But Ptolus has another defining feature, and that is the spire, which is this gigantic, narrow stone spire that sticks up 3,000 feet above the city. that is literally, it's like there's a fortress of evil at the top of it that has long been dormant, but like this was not, the fortress wasn't built on the top of the naturally occurring spire. The spire is actually the earth pushing that fortress away from itself. And so you've got, that's the other aspect that Monte has talked about, is this idea that he wanted to be able to run a campaign where you didn't just foreshadow a little bit about where it was going, right? Like the ultimate climactic thing that's going to happen in that campaign is literally looming over the heads of the players, literally all the time. So it's, anyway, so 672 pages give you this very detailed city, these very detailed dungeons and the spire and everything else. And I think another thing that's sort of worth calling out about it is that Monte wanted to make all of this accessible. And so he looked at ways people found big books about cities accessible, and he actually based it on travel books, like a Fodor's book or something like that, to inspire him both in the organization of the book and the way that he used like little character details from neighborhoods or places as ways to illustrate the feel of that neighborhood or place. If you like what we do in terms of how we organize our books, like with our sidebars and the call outs and the place where it'll mention something in the text, it'll be called out and give you a page reference and all that stuff, this is where Monte pioneered that. This was his first foray into that sort of
everything from
like the color tabs,
coloring
to define things,
just all of the call outs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And as someone who's played in Ptolus personally, there's years worth of gaming in that book.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine what's the Cypher system of the 5e version is going to look like.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
My original copy of Ptolus was stolen.
Oh no!
Yes.
No!
Oh yeah.
Where from? How? What happened?
When I was in Arizona, I had a storage unit, and my storage unit was broken into. They stole all of my gaming material.
Oh.
So I lost probably about, say roughly $10,000 worth of gaming material.
Oh God, that's so heartbreaking.
Oh,
It is.
dang.
So you don't understand how excited I am for this Kickstarter. Like, Anthony, I tell you, when you guys first announced it, I was like, okay, money is like, I'm there, you know.
Right.
So I am absolutely stoked. Cannot wait to get my hands on it. You know.
Excellent.
I'm gonna move on to one of the
play this time, right?
I should hope so. I'm gonna ask one of the most commonly asked questions. This question comes up a ton on our server, and it's created so many opinionated and heated discussions, to be honest about this. But with Ptolus and Arcana the Ancients both having 5e options, MCG has started to incorporate D&D conversions into your Kickstarters. Can you tell us a little bit about the thought process behind this business decision? And was there any fear of backlash from your core fan base?
Yes, we can tell you those things. So I'll start with the second question first. I think, yeah, there was a little bit of concern that might happen. I don't think we were too worried about it, but
because our fans are awesome.
Right.
I mean, fans of Monty's, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so initially with Arcana the Ancients, I think there was a little bit of that concern. And I think also with Ptolus, there was a bit of I think we asked ourselves, like, are people going to think we're turning into a 5e company? And so we want to be super clear that's not the case. That's not to say that we wouldn't ever do anything else for 5e, right? But our focus will always be on our own properties, our own game systems, because we are very focused on making the things that we love. So that's the short answer to that. So the longer thought process, I think, I don't know what led Monte to pitch Arcana of the Ancients initially. I mean, I don't remember the conversations very well that led to that, other than the fact that once the idea was out there, we were like, yeah, Numenera has all of this awesome stuff. It has all these things that harken back to Expedition to the Barrier Peaks and, stuff like that. And like, why wouldn't we try and bring that to 5e gamers, particularly when our staff, Monte Cook, Bruce Cordell, Sean Reynolds, like, these are people who know D&D really, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and plus we're getting queries like, will you ever make a 5e product, or will you ever do anything else? And so I think probably just mentioning that from time to time planted a seed,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of grew from there. Because I don't remember
Yeah, I don't really remember the specific process that got us to Arcana of the Ancients. But certainly, I think that the success of Arcana of the Ancients, which was, frankly, a more successful Kickstarter than we had anticipated. But like I say, we never presupposed anything. But Arcana of the Ancients did really well, for kind of how we had envisioned it initially. And so that got us thinking. And I think that, within a few months, particularly as Arcana of the Ancients started coming together, and, we have, as Tammie was showing me, we actually have copies of it here that arrived just a few days ago. So, but these went to press a month ago, right?
That's the deluxe.
Yeah, that's the deluxe. So that went to press. We got this first off the presses copy 2 or 3 days ago. The actual truck with all the thousands of copies arrives at the warehouse tomorrow. But that went to press a month ago. And a month before that, it was in proofing, right? So it was effectively done. It was already laid out. People could look at internally. We could look at what it was amounted to a finished book, other than the typos that we were finding. Well, no, I mean, we were in proofing. That's what proofing is for.
I thought you were looking at typos right now.
During the proofing process, one finds typos because that's why you do proofing.
Yes, that's why you do proofing.
But the point I'm making is that, setting aside those typos, going all the way to the beginning of the proofing process, you're looking at a finished product, right? And you can go back even further when you had books and products and layout, or art was coming in, or the text was written, or so on and so forth. So we've kind of known where, we see a book in one form or another months before there's this to show off in front of people. But as Arcana of the Ancients sort of solidified and became this real thing, I think that probably got us thinking about Ptolus, because like I said, a month doesn't go by where somebody doesn't ask MCG, aren't you guys going to ever reprint Ptolus? Again, it wasn't even our book, but.
And then it's one of those things where in customer service, you're like, you have to phrase it. It's not our property. So.
Right.
I'm excited to get my hands on Arcana Ancients, because I'm excited to see how Numenera translates to 5e. And, at our core, we're Cypher guys. That's what we do. But, there's nothing wrong with playing a little 5e now and again. and I'm just excited. And with Ptolus, it's the reverse. I'm excited to see what 3E, the 3E version of D&D looks like in the Cypher system rule set.
Right. And you'll start to see what that looks like with Godforsaken, which is July, I think, and that's the that's the fantasy book that follows in the footsteps of the Stars of Fire and Stay Alive, and We Are All Mad Here.
Yeah,
quite exciting. I mean, I'm definitely excited for Ptolus also, because as you guys may or may not know, I'm fairly new to role-playing games, so that was definitely way before my time, and it definitely seems like such an interesting concept. And just seeing the book, you picked it as this huge thing with handouts, it just seems like an amazing resource. Now let's lead away a little bit from the Kickstarter talk. So for all our aspiring game designers out there who might be listening, can you tell us a little bit about the Cypher Creator Program, how to get into it, what's the process of getting started, and do you have any advice for these people who are trying to break into the gaming industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Cypher Creator Program is a program on DriveThruRPG, and it is a program that essentially gives you a license to produce content for the Cypher system. So you would go there and you would click through the thing, and you will see the license, and it has conditions. It puts some limitations on what you can produce. Mostly those limitations are to prevent you from making a product that everybody will hate you for, or that damages the community of Cypher system players and creators. So it's not a lot of stuff. And then you can sell those products through DriveThruRPG, and as is always the case, you get a big chunk of the money, and DriveThruRPG gets a chunk of the money. And in the case of this, we also get, because the licensors, we get a little chunk of your money too. Gosh, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of titles on the Cypher System Creator Program. There are some resources.
I can't remember the name. Dean,
my heroic mixtape. The Heroic Essentials mixtape 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's also and then there's a new one coming out too real soon. It's called the Umbral Earth, and it's for all horror.
Ooh.
It's a horror, nice big horror supplement. Werewolves are going to be in there. You know?
Nice.
Yeah. It'll be out hopefully within the next week or so. I'm having it laid out right now.
And since we're mentioning Cypher Creator Program projects or products, Gobs of Gobs, which came out recently, is also really, really fun. Like if you haven't seen that, check it out. It's so good. We had Ethan on recently to talk about stuff, and it was awesome. It's just an awesome little setting.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff there, and there's an awful lot of things there. So if there's any topic as a game consumer, if there's any topic that you would love to see treated for the Cypher system, it's worth checking out because there's so many different things there. And to get there, probably the easiest way to just navigate there, if you're not searching for a specific title, is go to Monte Cook Games on drive-through, and you'll see like little buttons for all of our brands, and there's a button for the Cypher System Creator, and you click through to that, and it'll bring up all the Cypher System Creator titles that exist. As for the part about getting, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and also let everybody know too, Monte Cook provides a ton of resources for you to develop your product. They give you art packs, layouts. It is really, it's really easy to work within the parameters of Monte Cook Games. So you don't even have to, get your own art.
Bear did a lot of that, didn't he? Too
Actually, I put all that stuff together.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, I think Bear probably put the templates together.
I was thinking Bear put the templates.
Like there's templates, like if you want to put in InDesign, there's InDesign templates and there's art packs and stuff like that. Yeah. And
I love the stuff that's put together there because it turns out that I work at the company that makes all of these Cypher system adventures. So if you want to run something but you're not a writer, you have to go out and find something that one of you guys have written. So I love it.
Nice. Oh man. So moving forward, I got one more question for you. And this is like I've been waiting to ask you this question. So we know you're a gaming couple. We know you're a gaming family. I don't even have to ask you if your kids are avid gamers because Rowan has run me in some No Thank You Evil.
Nice.
But has there ever been a bad session or a TPK that created an argument or transcended the gaming table in the house?
Yes. Actually, so let me tell you a story. So we worked a lot. We worked at Last Unicorn Games. This is not really strife between us per se. We worked at Last Unicorn Games, and I had been at Pinnacle prior to that, and I was the brand manager at Pinnacle for Deadlands Hell on Earth, which is Deadlands post-apocalyptic setting, which I really loved, and I was sort of the developer for it, and for a while, and loved it, still love it. And I fired up a campaign when we moved to Los Angeles with our coworkers and friends, and so we were in the office. Our office in Los Angeles. Yeah, you do. Our office in Los Angeles was this. It was this old converted warehouse that had been built into several different office spaces, and most of them were like architecture firms and things like that because it was very modern and stylish. If you have seen The Big Lebowski, and if you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, shame on you. The scene where the dude gets kicked out of the cab because he complains about the Eagles. The cab driver's like, get out of my cab. That's where he gets kicked out of the cab is right in front of that Last Unicorn Games office. You don't see the building, but it's right there. Anyway, so because it's all these architecture firms and whatnot, most of the cars out in front during the day would be like Audis and BMWs and things like that. And
I know where you're going.
None of those cars belonged to us. Actually, that's not true.
That's not true. We had a Porsche.
I had a Porsche. I had bought a used 944, Porsche 944.
Really old.
Oh, cool.
So it looked very impressive. It was a great car.
It was a beautiful car.
It was a great car, but it was not actually because I was rich, or it was not. Anyway, so I guess that's what sort of made us the target. So we were in there running this game, and I was sitting at the head of the conference table because the way the office was arranged is a central conference table and then cubes and offices all around it, with a big cathedral ceiling into the warehouse space above. And there I am running this game, and I'm facing the front of the office, and some guy comes around the corner there, and I kind of look up. So Christian Moore was there.
Ellen Seiler, Ross Isaacs, Alessandro.
Matt Colville. We worked with Matt Colville, but he was not in that game, so he was not there that evening.
I'm trying to think who else was there, but
and Gypsy, our dog, was there in the office, and this guy comes in And at first I'm kind of like, who's this guy? Like, did somebody order a pizza or whatnot? And he pulls out a gun. And we are taken down at gunpoint there in our office while playing Deadlands Hell on Earth.
He made us get under the table.
Yeah. Made everybody lay down. He rifled through everybody's pocket. I think he was very disappointed. Like, all the other offices were closed, right? So there's nobody else to rob.
We didn't have anything. we already bought pizza for the night, so we didn't even have cash.
Right.
We were like,
right. You know, he like, I think he took one laptop and a couple of cell phones.
Well, no, that's the thing is that he took Christian's laptop, and that set back some writing. That was really sad.
That had the Deep Space Nine. GM screen and.
But he did. He took all of our car keys, and so we, even after the police came and we were cleared to leave, we were like, "Whoa!" This was before Uber, before Lyft. This was, how are we going to get home?
This is 1998 or 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But I will take it back to the have we ever had fights? So we haven't. There's a rule in our family. We mostly play cooperative games because
going into the board game space.
Into the board game space, yes. Board games we play cooperatively, but I don't think we've ever had any arguments over role playing. Maybe some tense.
I think maybe early on there's times perhaps
between the two of us, but that's all I know.
Good thing I've seen Risk destroy many a family. So good thing you don't play.
Yeah. No, in the board game department, that's where it gets a little trickier. There we tend to like games that either are cooperative, as Tammie said, or are those games where like you're building your own empire and it kind of interacts with other people, like games like Splendor or Azul or things like that.
Splendor, I love Azul.
Those all work well because you're not actively screwing the other player, right?
Yeah.
The games that are more competitive don't fly as well in our family.
It depends on who the audience is. I don't like playing with inexperienced gamers or kids when you're playing like the really hardcore competitive games. And I always tell them, like, you can play that card on me. It's okay. Just play that thing on me. Just do it on me.
Right.
You know, because I don't like to see people have a bad time. So.
Right. You're so nice, Tammie.
But if you guys are looking for a really fun cooperative board game, Spirit Island is a very good one. If you haven't heard of it, that game is amazing. I haven't played it in a while, but it's such a fun cooperative game.
Yeah,
I just throw it out there.
I backed that one on Kickstarter.
It's so fun.
I probably back way too much on Kickstarter. Like, if our house wasn't so messy, I would turn the computer around and you could see some of our games.
But
no. The computer is going to stay looking at the 6 linear feet that actually look good.
There was I bought the board game shelves, the board game shelves that ran on Kickstarter. Like, I got these shelves for Christmas.
Yeah, even our shelves are Kickstarted.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I've seen something like that. Yeah, don't know exactly which project, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we got a couple of questions from our adoring audience, and so I'm going to ask the first one is from Zany. He said, "Will there be Ptolus support for conventions soon?" Maybe. I guess that's a short answer. We've already done our Gen Con event submission happens, pretty early in the year, basically starting in January. So we do have some Arcana of the Ancient support.
We don't have Ptolus.
We don't have any Ptolus scheduled for Gen Con.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that would also be 6 months before Ptolus is out. So, this summer people would play it and they'd be like, "This is awesome. Where can I get it?" And the answer is you can't get it. And so then people leave disappointed. So.
But I can see it.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, Zany asked one question before that, just a little bit earlier. I know you answered the question a little bit, Dean, but I figured I'd ask it anyway just to see if you guys have any input on it. Do you guys have any plans for kickstarting any Cypher system stuff, like Godforsaken, like any new setting stuff beyond what's already coming out? Like, I think Godforsaken is the last one of the setting books, and they're just asking about any future projects for Cypher system beyond that.
I would very much like to survive this Kickstarter before we talk about something in the future.
That's pretty much what Dean said. But I just figured I'd throw it out there just in case.
The Ptolus Kickstarter is doing really well, and somebody said to me just the other day, they're like, it must feel great that the Kickstarter is doing well, but in some ways they're almost more tense when they're doing above your expectations. Because what I said to this person, I was like, imagine your kid is in the Olympics, right? And if you're and they're running a race in the Olympics, and you're there in the audience, right? If they're at the back of the pack, you're just happy to be there, man. But if they're like at the front and like they might get a medal, they might get a gold medal or whatnot, you're going to be biting your nails down to the bone. And that it's almost like that when a Kickstarter does kind of better than you were expecting or planning for. And the Ptolus Kickstarter is certainly doing very well. It actually, it's almost more stressful.
Nice.
I can definitely see that.
We have those discussions on the server. It's like almost like betting, like what's the number gonna be?
Yeah,
I'm always like, let's talk when there's like 2 days left. Monte Cook Games, you guys exceed my guesses every Kickstarter. So I'm like, I'll wait till there's 2 days left to the end of the Kickstarter, then I'll give you an estimated guess.
Those last two can be pretty darn volatile. So even that's never a sure bet.
So, and then we have one more question. It looks like it's the Larry and the Free. He says, what's something that most people get wrong about working for MCG?
Oh, well,
that we all work in the same city.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. Yeah. I know
one that I answer all the time, that you're a bigger company than what you actually are.
Yeah. People really think you guys are huge.
Like 50, 60 people.
I'm like, no, there's like 9, 10 people,
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's in every function of the company, right? So we don't obviously print the books ourselves. We don't own a printing press that's done by a vendor, or a game that's got components and boxes and things, or those might be done by a different vendor or a playmat or whatnot. So we don't actually do the physically making it. But everything else from
Yes, I mean, Monty, Shauna, Sean, and Bruce do design, and then the writing, and then Shauna also does. She previously did project management, which I've just tried to take over, and she does the managing editing. So she takes that product and she decides, everything from what do we capitalize, what do we italicize, to then it's turned over to Bear, and he lays it out, and he's like,
he orders all that art.
He orders all the art, and how many,
what it's going to look like,
what's going to go around on the sides, what color is this going to be, and so then that's Bear, and then Darcy has to understand the product because she has to tell people about it and get them excited and be in here with you guys and manage the community, and then there's conventions to manage, and then Charles and I kind of run the business side of it, and then there's Jennifer, who's on the front lines of talking to people and answering all those customer service questions. Other than that, did I get everybody?
You got everybody. Right. Well,
other than that, then we have our daughter Olivia, and 2 other people are part-times. They're all high school students, and so I go over to the warehouse in the afternoons, and they pack orders, and we print labels, and that's it.
Yeah, every single function that involves getting this out to people, from the initial idea to the physical thing to the customer service follow-up, is 9 people.
Well, that being said, first of all, you guys do magnificent work.
Well, thank you.
And I just saying this out there to the web, anybody who ends up watching this, now you got a clear picture. Understands, sometimes, even with me, there's been mistakes. Last order I made, I got 2 copies of Tomorrow's Bones and my Secret of the Silent Streets never came.
Yeah.
But these guys had to have a little vacation. I didn't don't lose it. Give them it was holiday time. Mistakes happen. So I'm just saying that out there to everybody out there in the world. These lovely people take care of us. They feed this wonderful hobby that we all embrace. And more than that, this system, this Cypher system, this invisible sun, now Ptolus is coming back, Arcana of the Ancients. Just look at that list. And you think this is a company that started in 2013 with 1 product. And now look what we have. So thank them, appreciate them, love them like we do.
Thank you.
Definitely an awesome sentiment to end our question, or our longer question portion of the show. But
I was just to ask if there's anyone in chat that has one final question to ask them before we move into a rapid fire question.
Oh Lord, am I supposed to be scared? Because I'm kind of scared.
Man, not really. It's kind of nothing too crazy. So we have one more question from the Larry and the Free. He says, "How are you?"
Nice.
You know, that is always a difficult question during a Kickstarter. They are nail biters.
Oh boy, but yeah, I think we can proceed to the the rapid fire portion of our segment, Anthony.
All right, guys, this is the fun part. Here's where we reach deep down into your soul. We pull out your essence and spread it out across the table for the world to see. These are quick,
And if we were playing Invisible Sun, that would be literal.
Yeah.
These are usually quick, one-word answer questions, but you could elaborate if you like. So my first question for the both of you is player or... No, I'm sorry. Is Al first or me?
It's Al.
Yeah,
Either way, player or GM.
And I vote notes. I don't even know my own notes.
Player.
GM. I mean, I actually love playing, but the creative call is for GMing.
Pull punches or TPK?
Pull punches.
Pull punches, usually.
Online.
Hey, are you kidding me?
Oh, the last time I killed a player character.
Only because I'm over there at the other side of the table going,
This goes back to the earlier question about are there any stresses at the gaming table?
Online or in-person gaming?
ooh. In person.
Yeah, we do. So like we had a great gaming group in England with our friends in England, and so we actually like get online with them on occasion.
It's so
Certainly
hard.
with the MCG crew spread across the country, both for social gaming and for playtest gaming, it's online. So there's a lot to be said for online.
I love online too, though.
But-
it really connects you to people. But if I could just get everybody in the same room, that's what I prefer.
Most definitely. Announce the difficulty number or keep it a secret.
Secret.
Secret until it becomes cumbersome. Once the players are kind of working it out and it doesn't have that element of like adding to the game for
It's
people.
when it becomes no longer interesting.
Yes, that's well put. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Salty or sweet snacks at the gaming table?
Salty.
Salty.
RP or combat?
Combat.
She's
I
definitely
love combat.
she's a tank player, yeah, for sure.
I always play the tank. I sometimes try not to, and then I end up playing like a pixie tank. It's like
Tammie said that with such authority.
The reality is in Invisible Sun, which is the only game I'm a player in currently as a campaign game, because I would argue the role-playing side, but my character is like my character's not a Vizlay because he's like into the secrets of magic or whatnot. My character's a Vizlay because he buffs for combat and combat and stealth is his focus. And so.
But we RP combat, right? I think
sure.
that's what makes it so fun is that I love. We.
And the
we
great
both
thing,
do-
great thing about Invisible Sun is all of the personal subplots and the threads.
Why don't
and
you
everything
tell them
else.
who your character is in our game?
My character is Tom Manguy, and if you pull out your sleuth deck and look at the card that's the hunter, and there's a figure with a gun, and there is a melanistic jaguar wearing a wristwatch, that's Tom Manguy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Now, to be clear, I drew my inspiration from the card. The card was not made out of my character. It was I made the character out of the card. But I was like, there's a Black Panther wearing a wristwatch. That's who I want to play for my character. And, yeah.
Now, every time I see that picture, I'm going to think of Charles.
Exactly.
Oh, but moving it along, PDFs or physical books?
Physical books.
Yeah, I mean, PDFs are great for searchability, and there's a lot of features for them that are fantastic. So I actually like having both, but I'm a physical book person.
I think it might be an age thing, but I always go to my physical books that I keep on my desk when I'm looking up something.
Now, ironically, like when you go to novels, I can't stand holding paper novels. I read everything on my Kindle, and I don't think Tammie's as invested in that as I am.
No, but yeah, I
All right. I'm sorry. I'm over here geeking out. Pen and paper notes or digital? Pen and paper notes or digital?
pen and paper.
Yeah, I often do a lot of the composing on in Word or Scrivener or whatnot like that, coming up with that. But then I'll print it all out for the game table.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Pre-written adventures or original content?
OC, baby.
It's a mix, right? Like I said earlier, I will go find an adventure that one of you guys have written, and then I put my own spin on it. That's what I do when I'm the GM.
I say this joke every time. We've interviewed at least a dozen people that have published adventures, and the answer is always OC.
It kind of makes sense.
You can't help it, you know, because even what you said, Tammie. I mean, the what was the first adventure that we had for Predation? The Caldor Complex.
Caldor Complex, yeah.
I remember running it at Gen Con when I got my hands on it, and that adventure I ran it 4 times at Gen Con, and it ran 4 different ways at Gen Con. You know, everybody had a blast.
Yeah.
You know, and I've run it since then, and again, it's just one of those. I mean, Predation is so awesome anyway. So
that is when you were asking about favorite books, that almost came up for me. I really like Predation a lot. It's a fantastic setting.
I love it. But yeah, you guys have survived our rapid fire questions. So congratulations.
That wasn't so bad.
And yeah, you know, thank you so much for coming on the show. You know, it's been a fantastic talk. You know, we learned a lot about what goes on within Monte Cook Games. You know, just how big you guys are, all that stuff. But for our viewers out there, how could they reach you online? Like Twitter, Facebook? Like, what's the best way to get in the minds of Charles and Tammie?
My public social media is principally through Twitter. I don't go spread abroad net on Facebook. So Twitter is best. Charles and Ryan. Yeah.
My email is Tammie@montecookgames.com. My Twitter is TAMWR, Tamwar. And yeah, I love hearing from people. Before we go, can I give one shout out? Though?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
right.
Give any shout outs, plugs, anything. Yeah.
All right, tomorrow is Darcy Ross's birthday.
Hey!
Happy birthday!
Happy early birthday, Darcy. We love you.
Yes, we do. Happy birthday, Darcy.
Happy birthday. And real quick before Zany just had one more comment. They said they wanted to tell Charles I remember his work on D20 Modern and Hell on Earth, and they just wanted to throw that at you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, again, it's been fantastic.
Al, I just want to tell a quick little story before we sign off. Tammie, I don't know if you know this, but I think this will be a 4th year or 3rd year. We first went to Gen Con. We just started Cypher Unlimited. The only person we knew was Darcy. Happy birthday, Darcy. We love you. And we showed up to the meet and greet. And, you know, we didn't know if anybody were going to we basically 3 idiots that like talking about gaming. And we showed up to the Monte Cook Games meet and greet. And I don't know if you know this, but you were the first person that actually sat down and talked to us.
Aww.
So now every meet and greet, you know, I tell Dean, I tell Al, every Gen Con, I go, we got to find Tammie and give Tammie a hug because
I like that.
You know, it doesn't, you know, our Monte Cook Games meet and greet doesn't stop until the Cypher Unlimited hugs Tammie. So I don't know if you, I mean, you probably weren't even aware, but you actually sat down with us and you spoke to us for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that.
We were the crazy loud guys with Cypher Unlimited shirts that no one knew. So, we really
new design.
Well, we love what you guys.
Shirt,
we love what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really appreciate it. But yeah, you know, this has been again an amazing chat. We'll be sure to upload this to YouTube once we're all done here, and we'll add any links, you know, to your social medias, you know, to Monte Cook Games in general. Yeah, you know, once it's up on YouTube, be sure to, you know, share the video out with our viewers out there. It'd be much appreciated. Be sure to subscribe, hit the little notification. If you're on Twitch, be sure to hit that follow button. It really helps us grow our brand, our community here. Yeah, any final thoughts, fellas, before I close this out?
Just Charles, Tammie, when does the Ptolus Kickstarter end, and how long does everyone have?
You have until March 20th.
Okay, so if you guys haven't backed it, jump on Kickstarter right after this interview and back it, please.
Exactly, because even
I want those stretch goals.
Yeah, we want the stretch goals, and even if you're just in the PDFs, just everybody knows. I know these so by heart, I don't know, but for $60, you get all of them. You get every version. Even
Right.
the old
Not
one.
only that, but like
The
it's
whole
like
backlog.
27 titles from the third edition version, and a lot of those things are art books and map books. They're not actually system specific, so they will be useful to your game when you play Cypher or 5e with Ptolus, and you'll get those things early. It's like $250 worth of stuff that you get for just as part of your pledge.
Right, and that will all come in 2 weeks after the campaign.
Yep.
About.
Why are you?
I'm quite excited for that stuff just to get a look at it,
Absolutely.
because I haven't seen it before. I'm a baby gamer. But either
Aw.
way, again, thank you so much for coming on. Always a blast to talk to you guys. And from us at the CU, we will see you later.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
guys.